To honor our panel, we have Dr. S.K. Bose. Dr. S.K. Bose is an associate professor and has been the faculty of law at Manav Rachna University since August 2018. He is a seasoned professional with more than 24 years of experience in teaching and practice. He is LLM Constitutional and Administrative Law, LLM Corporate and Commercial Law, LLB BA Honors, LLB MA Public Administration with specialization in Public Personal Administration, MA in English with specialization in American Literature. He did his PhD in English Literature. Dr. Bose has the distinction of teaching in various elite institutions, including Indian Law Institute, New Delhi, the Indian Society of International Law, New Delhi, Indian Institute of Public Administration, New Delhi, Indira Gandhi National Open University, KR Mangalam University. He has more than 8 years of experience as a practicing lawyer in the High Court and Supreme Court of India. Apart from teaching BA LLB Honors, BBA LLB Honors programs, he teaches LLM and PhD scholars and has already guided a number of LLM candidates in their dissertation, including 2 various capacities, such as students from Cardiff University, UK. He has worked in several educational institutions in various capacities, such as department head, subject matter expert, research analyst, academic coordinator, academic head. He is an author and editor and has worked in various projects for various publications, newsletters, and journals. Dr. Bose has a number of publications in national and international journals to his credit. He has authored more than a dozen well-received books, some of which include Critical Perspectives in American Literature, Studies in Comparative Literature, Studies in 20th Century Literary Criticism, Studies in Commonwealth Literature, etc. Sir, it is an honor for us to have you on the panel. Over to you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for a very generous introduction. I just need to get a confirmation from you that am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
That's great. Thank you so much for having me. I don't know where you managed to get that profile, very comprehensively you spoke about and gave my introduction. That has put me under tremendous pressure. However, I must take it as a compliment. And since you have invited me, Dr. Sylvester, at the outset, I express my sincere gratitude and thanks to you. Yes, I was asked to speak on the importance of law and literature. The combination is a deadly combination. For last few years, I've been devoted to teaching law subject. So essentially, I was told to talk about the kind of relationship that law and literature have. Not only law, literature, also the language. So my address to all of you, the scholars, and especially the young law students, that why we need to study literature. I think I just joined, I could hear 1 or 2 presenters talking about their presentations in literature, confessional poetry, something that is very, very heartening to hear. But since I will be speaking about relationship between law and literature, now importance of literature that in the life of a law student. And we know that I would be just sharing my PowerPoint presentation, a very short PowerPoint presentation. Okay, I was talking about the kind of deadly combination that when literature and law, law and language. So what I'll be speaking about the connection between literature and life that so crucial. When we talk about literature, it expresses the individual's feeling. And since literature is the mirror of society, whatever happens there in society, that is being reflected through literature. Whether it's a powerful poetry, whether it's an essay, whether it's film, whether it's a television serial, that talks about, that depicts the features of the present society. So as a student of law, that you need to read literature extensively. What happens to read that extensively? Because law is ubiquitous, it's omnipresent. So law is a subject that essentially deals with the society. And literature, similarly, literature is the subject that talks about the prevailing practices of the society. It talks about various nitty-gritties that comprises the society in terms of its cultural value, in terms of a historical perspective, in terms of its background, in terms of the social assimilation, so on and so forth. So literature appeals to the man and woman, and when you talk about the passion, you talk about emotion, you talk about your feelings, everything that comes through that literature, and it's so powerful. When you're a student of law, you study law and you understand law. For any kind of implementation of rules and regulations there in the society, that you need to understand the social fabric, you need to understand the society as a whole. So the diverse elements present in the society, that makes it quite complex for understanding various communities, understanding their needs, understanding their no futures, or understanding their aims and ambitions, to create a kind of sync between that the law is, when it is meant for the protection of individuals, law is there to see that everybody follows a system. Law is there to make you very, very disciplined. So law is meant for your protection. Law is meant to safeguard your interest. Law is there to make you disciplined. And for that you need to understand various aspects of the society. Law evolves. Since law is a subject which is dynamic in its nature, it is so vast, and it's ever evolving. Therefore, you have to update yourself with various literature available to understand the intricacies of law. So literature has a power to mobilize the society. It has very important functions that brings the best in individuals. A lawyer may not be able to understand his fellow man if he does not extensively read. When you talk about reading literature, we talk about literature that actually, like Francis Bacon says, some books are just to be read, or some are to be digested. Some books, if I do not, I am not able to recall exact line, but few are to be chewed and digested. So you have to also find out that which piece of literature is important, which piece of literature is so valuable and it's useful, that you have to identify. So literature appeals very universal aspect, and it talks about the important features of life. Books are literature when they bring us into some relations with life. And that language being functional, you have to understand that the role of this literature plays there in mobilizing the society and bringing a kind of transformational change. And therefore, keeping that point in mind, that law students or even the young lawyers or the law aspirants or those who want to have their career as the judicial officials, they may be judges or they may be law officers in multinational company, or they may be law professors that teaching in academia. So what happens that lawyers or the legal professionals are supposed to be powerful speakers. They are powerful communicators. And for this communication, the four aspects where you talk about reading, listening, speaking, and writing, all those four elements are the basic four elements are very, very vital. But apart from that, what more? Normally, when a student comes and chooses law as the future career, that from day one he is thrown into a kind of situation where he or she cannot just do away with that extensive reading. As a student of medical science, from day one, there is a tremendous pressure of reading and remembering things. Similarly, law is again a professional course from day one. It throws challenge on you. It's very, very demanding. At the same time, it will open the lucrative avenues for you if you have that kind of passion. So I would suggest that those who are pursuing law as a subject and thinking of future career to become the judge or a powerful lawyer or even the legal professors, reading is a must for them. And reading happens only when you identify the literature. Which are the literature, whether the different genres, the fictions or poetries or essays or the prose, all kinds of literature to be identified and to be sorted out there as a student of law. I would be, during the course of my talk, I will also I will suggest you what are the books or what are different literature available for law students. I hope there are many students or many scholars or of the professors from multidisciplinary field. They may be from humanities, from science, from literature, but essentially I am focusing, and my talk focuses on those who are especially thinking of shaping their career in law. So for them, my sincere advice is that do not do not be away from literature any point in time. Literature is part of your life, part and parcel of your life. As a student of law, you think where there is law, there is literature. And there is a tangible relationship between this law and literature that I will be focusing in mind. Because of the paucity of time, I just could not prepare my slides accordingly, but I'll focus more on my lecture rather than reading. Now, to understand that, let's see that how law is defined, where this that symbiotic relationship between law and literature can be more or can be better understood if we understand what this law means. The provisions, the rules which regulate the conduct of society, primarily generated by the legislative branch of the government. And if you say that the legislative branch of the government, there are three organs of the government, that the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary. And Black's Dictionary, which is a famous dictionary when you talk about the legal subject or law subject, it's the Black's Dictionary that is which for every law student, it's essential for them to have, whether it is that PDF form or it is a hard copy of Black's Dictionary. Similarly, if you're a student of humanities or literature, Oxford Dictionary or Cambridge Dictionary or Collins Dictionary. Or Black's Dictionary for the students of law. So Black's Dictionary defines law as the regime that orders human activities and relations through systematic application of force of politically organized society or through social pressure backed by force in such a society. Roscoe Point says that lawyers are the social engineers. So they have a tremendous role to play in shaping of the society. If we want to have a robust, a very strong democratic society, a strong democratic country, then you need to make your citizens very, very powerful. There should be the prevalence of rule of law. There would be freedom of speech and expression. There would be liberty, liberty of thought and expression. And since I'm talking about how you're going to build a strong, democratic, and a vibrant society, that when you yourself is very disciplined one. So when you talk about that you are disciplined one, you abide by the rules, you follow the rules and regulations. Even the Constitution of India, that the very preamble of the Constitution talks about that we, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, and to secure all its citizens justice, social, economic, and political. So when you talk about law, you cannot talk about law in isolation. You have to talk about the justice, law and justice. Justice, social, economic, and political. How does that happen? That happens when that the Constitution, which is a living document that tells, that underlies that you are going to make a democratic society where there is freedom and people enjoy their liberty. They have the freedom of speech and expression. You don't have to curtail their freedom. Of course, there would be reasonable restrictions. But when you go by the Constitution of India, when you go by the organic document, which is your Indian Constitution, as a living document, you follow the rules and regulations, you respect the prevalence of rule of law, you take care of everybody's rights and liberties, you do not encroach others' rights or the privileges, you behave yourself as a disciplined citizen. So you have a tremendous role to play. And that happens when you read literature. I talk about the literature does not necessarily mean that you will be talking about literature relating to that American literature or British literature or even modern literature, talking about especially that language of English or Sanskrit or Telugu or Tamil or Bengali. I talk about various books, various pamphlets, various leaflets, various journals relating to your subject, which is again multidisciplinary in nature, gives you tremendous strength, tremendous knowledge to understand the other things which are also equally important. So if you are a student of literature, if you are a student of language, you think that I have nothing to do with social science, I have nothing to do with political science or public administration or accountancy or business studies, etc. But as a student of law, you are going to be expert of the experts. Again, similarly, normally don't know that the English language teachers, they are also believed to be expert of the experts. So more importantly that to understand the law, to understand the intellectual property right, to understand cyber law, to understand constitutional law, administrative law. So you need to understand the basics of political science. You understand the civics, geography. That's why I mean to say that is a piece of literature. If the student of language, English language, makes a contribution, that a multidisciplinary piece of writing that gets published in a journal. I think some of the speakers, I do not want to take the names, and they talk about various cultural aspects of various regions. And if you are really an avid reader, you read anything and everything. But of course, you have to sort out that which are important for you, like the 7 habits of Govi's 7 habits. That one of the habits is the first come. The first thing should be the first. So you have to prioritize what is important for you. And that kind of vision, that kind of outlook you will get when you read that literature. Therefore, I personally suggest everybody that if you are a student of law and you do not read various literature extensively and intensively, then probably there would be no growth. And in that respect, I feel that is a tremendous relationship, a very, very tangible and a very solid relationship between literature and law. And and especially you make your communication skills so powerful, so effective because of that background, because of that literature. And if you want to aspire, you want to become the judge, we are going to write the judgment. So your vocabulary, your expressions, your idioms, your structural, that know how you'll be joining the phrases, you have the good knowledge of grammar, you will be able to identify different clauses, you will be able to make simple, complex, compound sentences. So there is judgment writing. If you would be writing a petition, a complaint, or something, so you are reading literature, having sound grammatical knowledge, then vocabulary, then various legal maxims, legal abbreviations, legal terms and terminology. That will happen only when you read literature. I am not able to see anybody there on my screen, and speaking to you people gives me no joy. But no, I would love to interact with the scholars or the professors or the students, so that I will be able to take or listen to their side of story. But here it's a kind of monologue for me. Therefore, I am finding it even slightly difficult to get connected with you people virtually. However, talking about this, I was talking very, very, wider way, that the interconnection of literature and language, and literature and law, and even the culture. So when you are expected to do something very special for your society, you have to build a society, you have to build a very strong nation. Therefore, Therefore, you are called to be a social engineer. You will be making a society, and you'll be telling people to follow the law of the land. You will be telling them the importance of the rule of law. You will be telling that in the eyes of law, all are equal. You'll be giving them the social justice, the justice, political justice, economic justice. That will happen. Your vision will change, your focus will change, and your outlook will tremendously get affected because of extensive reading of literature. And Roscoe Pound pointed out long back, the two ideas are running through definitions of law. One, an imperative idea, another idea, rule laid down by the law making organ political. And that happens, you are telling that lawyers, that the lawmakers, we talk about the parliamentarians, they are your representative, and democracy is of the people, by the people, for the, these people have been elected by you, so that they will be making laws for your safety, for your safeguard, for your protection. Do they have that enough knowledge? And if not, then citizens have an important role to play, that you will be giving your suggestions. That sometimes various Law Commission of India, or even the Ministry of Law and Justice and various other NGT and NCLAT, they are asking for suggestion from the common citizens. And if you are a conscious citizen and you are a law student, you can contribute in the process of legislation. You can give the suggestions. You can have a small kind of center where you will be guiding the parliamentarians, give them the free knowledge, and that will definitely affect you, and it will put you in good stead because of your interest in reading. And I think literature opens the horizon, and therefore, as a student of law, literature is a vital part. It is an integral part, and you cannot do away with. Lawyers ought to be powerful speakers, as I said, with poise and precision, and who not only know when to speak their point of view in a loud, pompous manner, with all that alacrity, with that promptness. At the same time, they know also where to mellow down. So if speech is silver, silence is gold. So you need to know also where to remain silent. And again, you have the right to be silent. So it's not that no, there is a saying that a smart thinks whether or not speak the right thing at the right time. And all these things will be coming that when you read various pieces of literature, William Shakespeare talk, you talk about Emily Dickinson, you talk about Eliot, most of even Ben Jonson, they have in their novels, in their fictions, in their dramas, they have put a lot of William Shakespeare, where he talks about that Portia is not a professional lawyer. Why I'm giving that example? Because I'm talking about literature. So you have literature that sometimes an unjust argument can win you case. It's not that you have the skill, that you know the intricacies of law, you know all the technicalities of law, therefore you are winning. And it's not necessarily knowing everything about law, you are going to win the case. Sometimes you bring that passion. You are a passionate speaker. You move the entire court with your with your eloquent speech, and everybody will be moved. Probably that point in time, the judge may give a decision in your favor. So that is the power of communication. So again, it's not about communication that speaking with all that alacrity and promptness, but at the same time to see that where to remain silent. Because sometimes the judges also love to hear their own voice, and you go on and on and on speaking there in the courtroom, and not understanding the mind of the judge, that where the judge wants to speak and come in, and you are not allowing the judge to speak. Obviously, judge will be disgruntled and will be disheartened, disillusioned, will be very, very unhappy with you, and may not even give the verdict that in your favor, where you are at the verge of winning that case, had you given that opportunity to the judge to speak. So there is the art of listening, and all these things will be known to you when you read that extensively various pieces of literature. This address is not meant for the students of English literature. I am talking to the law students or the social science students. Those do not think that no, I am a student of political science. I am a student of physics. What is the need of or the requirement of studying that that law, or requirement of studying that literature? Literature, I told you that everything happens, whatever happens, that the literature opens up your horizon. It gives a different outlook to your thoughts and your feelings. It tremendously affects your thinking, and you get a different kind of philosophy towards life as a whole. And that happens only you will be reading literature, irrespective of you are a student of social science, you are a student of political science, you are a student of sociology, or you are a student of law, or you are a student of business study or accountancy. That is the power of literature that I was trying to talk about. And if you say that if you have a good communication skill because of your study of extensive literature, because you have vast knowledge of various poetries, poems that have the themes of law, talking about various, I will be telling you the next slide, or maybe the other two towards the end of the slides, which are the fictions. Various movies are there relating to the crime, relating to murder, relating to juvenile justice, relating to pornography, cyber law. All these things are there that will enrich your knowledge that if you read literature. In that aspect, I will be telling that literature plays extremely important role there in the life of a student who is a student of social science, or a student of law, or a student of business study. So writing, again, whoever you are, whether you become a doctor, you become judge, or you become lawyer, or you become even any professional. So communication is vital for your survival. So it makes or breaks your career. So what is that X factor you bring to the table when you got 70% or nowadays students are scoring at 90%. You got 90%, XYZ got 90%, and you have been called by the board for the interview. And the interviewer asked that what is special about you that I'll be hiring you, even a law firm or a multinational company or even State Bank or any nationalized bank or private bank where they require law officer, and you are a BBA LLB graduate, or you are BA LLB graduate, or you are become a LLB graduate. But what that X factor you are bringing to the table, that you have tremendous flawless communication skill. Or not only that, you are a powerful speaker, you are a powerful writer as well. So if you do not write, you will be struggling throughout your law career that to write or draft a proper petition, to write a complaint, or to make a simple legal notice. You have to understand the various aspects, the nitty-gritty of legal notice and common notice. You have to understand the report. You have to understand what are the technicalities of pleading or conveyancing, or various affidavit, indemnity bond, and all these things should be happening. That is again essentially that all these things you will be able to quickly pick if you have a good communication skill. At the same time, you can understand also English. If the judge speaks or the judge writes a kind of judgment by reading extensive judgment, I would say now boys and girls or ladies and gentlemen, those who are law aspirant and pursuing their law, or LLM candidates or PhD candidates. I was told that there may be LLM candidates and undergraduate students of law mostly. I'm talking about that literature, the judgments written by various judges. Now, Justice Deepak Mishra extensively reads that William Shakespeare or Wordsworth, and most of his judgments he uses those terms and terminology, those quotes and famous lines of William Shakespeare, talking about that 12th night to King Lear, to King Henry, quoting that thing in the judgment. And if you read all the landmark judgments, that they are beautiful pieces of literature. Again, I would be saying that literature does not confine to the fiction or the prose or the poetry and the novels or dramas. I talk about the judgments, the landmark judgments given. Even Keswanand Bharti is that judgment is a Bible, and that judgment is a beautiful piece of literature, and that a thing of beauty, joy forever. That is that John Keats, and this line, this judgment is a classic, and it is forever. The more you read, the more pleasure you will be deriving, and that's the beauty, a thing of beauty. The judgment of that Keswanand Bharti is a thing of beauty. It will never cease to nothingness. It will never come to an end. It will never come to an end. It will always be there. And the more you will be reading, the more that pleasure you will be deriving, the more happiness you will have, the more knowledge you have. That is what I'm talking about, that literature. As a student of law, you cannot think of reading law subject without reading the judgment, without reading the case law, without reading the constitution. And my sincere advice today would be, I'm not able to see anybody there on the screen except that my slide only. But I'm assuming that everybody is listening to me, everybody is there. So I would say that read that book is there. The 10 judgments by Jia Modi, that she is the daughter of Soli Sorabji, that ex-Attorney General of India, that Soli Sorabji's daughter, Jia Modi. She has written a book, 10 Judgments That Changed India. Everybody, whether you are a student of law or not a student of law, must read those 10 judgments that have changed that India's perspective, India's legal system, and India as a whole. The 10 judgments. I know many of you must be knowing Keswanand Bharti judgment, even if you are not a student of law. Many of you must be knowing that Maneka Gandhi's case, Maneka Gandhi and Union of India. Many of you must be knowing Vishakha, the guidelines, that sexual harassment. Many of you may be knowing D.K. Bose, that guidelines, that all this. Many of you must be knowing that Olga Telly's case versus Mumbai municipal corporation. So even if you are not a student of law, and that happens when you read this judgment, thinking that no, and those who are aspiring to become the administrative officer, IS or IPS and all, I hope that they must be also listening to me. So that's the power of literature. I want to tell you people. So here, that is what I say, that no, you want to be a powerful speaker, you have to read this literature, and literature is not confined to only prose, fiction, or dramas, or all the films or the television serials. Anything that is relevant to you as a subject, that will be important. Any piece of beautiful piece of article written, a research article on sociology, it's tremendously going to help you that as student of law. So that is what I'm talking about, that piece of literature. So this I don't have to also talk more about how important it is to that have that skill of understanding that if the opponent, the lawyer is speaking something, that you have that tremendous power of understanding. That happens with the comprehension, and that is why most of the students and we people studied that reading, where reading for comprehension, reading to understand, not reading to read loud and showing your pronunciation, rather reading that text to understand the context of that text. So that is that comprehension. And for becoming a powerful lawyer, or even for that matter the judge, you have to also have a tremendous understanding, the tremendous ability of understanding others. And that understanding happens when you are a patient and a very, very careful listener. Now coming to the next slide, talking about lawyers, I have covered without seeing this slide.
Sir, your slides are not changing, sir.
No, I was not changing my slide. So I was talking about that the slide got stagnated. Which slide you were seeing? I think the previous slide was this one, literature and law. I was talking about lawyers ought to be powerful speaker. Is that telling this slide?
Sir, it's in the first slide since the beginning.
Is it? But I am making the slide, so I am changing my slides. Is it changing now? Just confirm me. Is it changing now?
No, sir, it's in the first slide.
Better just tell me that I am pressing that button to move my slide. On my screen, the slides are moving. So should I stop sharing again? I'll share. Okay, let me try. So it is now unshared? Is it unshared now?
Not yet, sir.
No, I tell unshared. That means nothing is shared.
No, sir.
Okay. Okay, is it shared now? Which slide you are able to see now?
Sir, lawyers are social engineers.
Oh, that is what I was actually doing, and moving that one, and why it was not moving. Slides are not moving. Okay, now let's see. Which one you are able to see now?
An unjust argument may win you a case.
So it got, I don't know, it got stuck over there. I started sharing again, and I'm moving from first slide itself, and it's not showing to you. What can be done? What can I do? I have now reshared and starting from the beginning. Now I was talking about this one, that defining law. Then I was talking about literature and law. Lawyers are to be powerful speakers. This is already covered. Now talking about lawyers as social engineers, that I have also covered. I told that how Shakespeare even had quite a lot to say about lawyers, and many of his observations still are relevant. Talking about that the Merchant of Venice, many of you may be literature students. in the Merchant of Venice, one of the portions where Portia's courtroom speech. As a student of law, also I keep this as one one of the modules in the syllabus, that reading the Quality of Mercy by Portia. Portia is a powerful character created by William Shakespeare in the Merchant of Venice, where she did not have that knowledge of law, but she wanted to save life of that Antonio. So therefore, she, in the disguise of a lawyer, she came to the courtroom and made an emotional speech. And she also displayed a tremendous knowledge of common sense. And there she was able to move the entire court. What is the relevance of saying that? That means that is the power of the literature. That literature talks about Merchant of Venice, talks about law. So when you talk about the student of law to study literature, you also understand that piece of literature where somebody is making the powerful speech and making everybody move with that speech and able to win everybody's heart as a lawyer, and nobody could even get the hint that she is not a professional lawyer. That is the power of literature. Many of these are being depicted in various novels, various dramas and all. As a student of law, you have to read that. Probably what that skill you will be learning from Portia, that it is not necessarily that you have to have the mastery in your subject. Even if you do not have the mastery in the last subject and you are a powerful speaker, a powerful communicator, you can still have a possibility of winning the case. That is the relevance of talking about William Shakespeare with precisely that Merchant of Venice and coming to that courtroom speech of that Portia. That is the even famous phrase that the first thing we do to kill the. So talking about William Shakespeare talks about his admiration towards lawyers. You read them, you get very happy that lawyers are being recognized. So as a student of law, you feel that even the famous writers, famous literature scholars, they have written, they have spoken widely, they have spoken broadly about the contribution of the lawyers, of the judges, and the law professionals. So you feel very happy. There is a sense of disquiet in the society. People say that the people are very cynical also, that lawyers are not being treated that respectfully. But mind you, ladies and gentlemen, lawyers are very, very respectful people. Their law profession is one of the most honorable profession. And once you realize that you are a social engineer, you have to create a society, build a society, and no nation can be built on gold and diamond. It's built on the citizens. So if you are a good law-abiding citizen and you understand the importance of democracy, you understand the importance of liberty and equality and justice, then you can build up a very strong, robust, vibrant society. And that is why that you will be able to play a very, very important role in contributing towards the society. And when he says that his tone was quite ironical, he wants to say that lawyers are going to when William Shakespeare, let the lawyers be killed first, because if you want that there is despotism, there is autocracy, there is tyrannism, they kill the lawyers. So as long as the lawyers are alive, they would be always protecting the downtrodden, the destitutes, the underprivileged. But if you want tyrannism to prevail, then kill the lawyers. And lawyers, they spoil the party. In that sense, he talks about law. That means lawyers are the noble professional. They are the noble professionals in the sense that they will be bringing justice to the common man, to the common citizen, to the underprivileged, to somebody who is deprived of the justice, deprived of the liberties, and that is what I'm telling. In Henry Part 6, Part 2, one of the Shakespeare's historical plays may mention that his immediate context reveals, as you know, characters of resentment towards lawyer, but it is in fact the admiration towards the lawyers, because they are the social engineers and they can mobilize, they can make this one. I was talking about Porcius there. I told that unjust argument may win a case. The concept of rhetoric, again talking about the concept of rhetoric, that the art of persuasion, how you persuasively you speak. That sometimes the art of persuasion, I think most of you literature students must be knowing that there is a rhetorical triangle suggested by Aristotle, talking about logos, pathos, and ethos. So if you want to be a powerful speaker, not only powerful speaker, you are going to be a persuasive speaker, that you know rhetoric, you'll be using the words, idioms, phrases in a most dramatic way, in a passionate way, and to win the hearts of the listeners. So you have to create that instant connect with the listeners, and that happens if you read literature, understand the uses of rhetoric. You will be using there in your law studies, in your professional career as a lawyer. You will be using legal maxims, legal terms and terminologies, those idioms, and of course these rhetorics, the words to poise and precision with that kind of accuracy, flawlessly. You will be using those ones to make a persuasive speech. And when you talk about persuasive speech, I would again tell the tremendous piece of literature is that Martin Luther King's speech is "I Have a Dream." It is a classic piece of rhetorical speech where he has used rhetorics to perfection. And that speech is Martin Luther King's speech is "I Have a Dream." Winston Churchill was a powerful speaker. Again, is a great persuasive speaker. Martin Luther King, Winston Churchill, Barack Obama, Abraham Lincoln. These are the speakers. No, their speeches are classes. No, where you talk about the fight on the pitches by Winston Churchill remains as a classic piece of literature. Again, this speech of Martin Luther King, "I Have a Dream," Winston Churchill's speech, Barack Obama's maiden speech, all these again consider them that tremendous or the wonderful piece of literature for a student of law and social sciences. So therefore, I will be talking about the concept of rhetoric. Because of the paucity of time, I was told to take 40 to 45 minutes. I would not take much time. Quickly, I'll be telling the concept of rhetoric, where you will be using that words. Maybe I can talk about these things like a bit in other platform or in other occasion. That is where rhetoric, where the art of effective persuasive speaking or writing. That the dictionary, I don't have to tell that these are meant for students, but it's not. Rhetorical title, where you talk about that if you want to be a powerful speaker, that reading that literature, reading that art of rhetorics, or a rhetorician is like a physician. That a physician, a rhetorician is like a doctor. That a physician who is going to diagnose the disease and prescribe the medicine. Similarly, a powerful speaker also identifies the listeners and then makes his own strategy and goes with his speech to win the listener's heart. Again, that is an art. But similarly, a doctor, Aristotle compares a rhetorician with a doctor. A doctor, having studied that the medical sciences, may not be able to cure every disease and any disease, may not be able to give that 100% guarantee to save the life of a person or a patient. Similarly, that a rhetorician applying all the techniques and the skills and all those the required elements to win the hearts of the listener may not be successful in winning the hearts of the listeners, may not be able to make that powerful speech, may not be able to make that persuasive speech. It is possible. That is why he compares a rhetorician with a doctor. Having mastered the subject of medical science, may not be able to cure every disease. Similarly, a rhetorician, having applied all the techniques of rhetoric speech, may not be able to move with speech also. But what are the fundamental elements to be remembered by the rhetorician? If you are rather you want to make a rhetoric speech, So you have to remember the three aspects. One is logos, then the ethos, and then the pathos. So in logos, you talk about the content, that you have the subject matter. And then ethos, you talk as a speaker, you build up a character. When you talk about a character, means I told you, I'm sorry that do not have so much of time and we could tell lot many things. When you build up a character, the character means that no, you are easily accepted by the audience, by the listeners. That you have that virtue, that noble quality, that what you speak, you mean it. You are, whatever you are speaking, that no, you are speaking it very, very sincerely. So there is element of sincerity in your voice. The listeners are public subject, public understand everything. So they can see that where you are trying to be full then. And or you are using these rhetorics actually because these are coming from your heart. These are coming from the core of your heart, and you are passionately making that speech. They can understand there is element of sincerity in your tone and tenor. So then they will be moved. But if you artificially try to win their heart and you want to become a powerful speaker by using all the techniques and you do not have a character, where you talk about a speaker, creates that instant connect between the audience. If that is missing, you will never be able to do. Similarly, if the audience, that you have to identify horses for the courses, that whether the audience are in a position to listen to me, what I am going to speak. And if the audience are the village people, they want to hear in a village, very simple village language, you go and talk in a very sophisticated way, you will never be able to connect with them, and you will never be a powerful speaker. Irrespective of you have a powerful command over the language and you are admired or appreciated by, you have a wide, that kind of circle where people say that you are a good speaker, but you may not be able to create that kind of connect going to the village or talking to the village people, because they are not, and again it's coming for the situation, whether they are in a mood to listen to you. So that comes with the speaker as creating that kind of ethos, and the virtue that you will be doing, what you speak, the element of that, the elements you are choosing there in your speech, the content, and of course that the character you pose yourself or you project yourself as, and of course that you talk about the pathos, that emotions, that passion, that kind of bonding you will be creating instantly, understanding the pulse of the audience, understanding their requirement and need, you will be doing. There are, I won't take the names of the people, they understand the needs of the people and speak in that way, that what public actually wants. The moment you will be able to identify, probably you will be a great speaker that when you come to the public forum. And that is what that is the requirement of that rhetoric. And that's why it's not that relevant at this point in talking about rhetoric, but I gave you the brief understanding of this rhetorical triangle, where that way you talk about pathos, you will be values, bond, and emotion coming. When you talk about ethos, that trust, that kind of character you build, that kind of enticing, that you will be able to entice or allure the people, and of course the logic reason you give, that is the content of the proof of logos. So logos, pathos, and ethos are three elements that will be making your speech quite rhetoric, and that is called the rhetorical triangle. If you can keep that rhetorical triangle in mind, you got to be a powerful speaker, and you can also prosper in course of time. So must read and watch, I was talking about that, which are the pieces of literature must read as a student of law. Ladies and gentlemen, my apology, I have been exclusively talking to the students of law, especially law scholars or PhD students or LLM candidates. That's why those who are literature, they must be knowing it's Charles Dickens, the Great Expectations and other things they might have read or not. But I am talking to these law students, law scholars. They must read this, must read for you. These are the novels or fictions of Charles Dickens. Most of his novels entertain legal characters, legal references. Pickwick Papers in 1922 is one of the Bleak House on that. And Franz Kafka, the trial, you read Before the Law, that is there, Before the Law. It's available online. Please read as student of law. I must tell you that these are must read for you. The Bleak House by Charles Dickens. You can read Franz Kafka's The Trial, and I have not mentioned here Before the Law. Before the Law is also one of the pieces of literature by Franz Kafka. And The Benefit of the Doubt by Jack London, Emily Brodka, Wuthering Heights. I think most of the literature students must have read Wuthering Heights. And John Grisham also, the modern writer, Time to Kill, The Farm, The Pelican Brief, The Client. And the essays, of course, the master is there, that Francis Bacon of Judicator, you will be reading that. William Hazlitt, Table Talk. Matthew Arnold, you will be reading for lawyers and others. Lord Bingham, again, that famous lawyer from British, famous judge, a lawyer, law professional, his business of judging. These are the pieces of literature I want all the law scholars must read. And I must suggest you people, ladies and gentlemen, to also watch these movies available on YouTube. Even that Portia's speech available on YouTube, that just type Google. Nowadays, Google is at your service, at your disposal for 24 hours. So you can type that one, Portia's courtroom speech, you'll be able to get that one on YouTube. And films like 12 Angry Men or The Juryman's Tale or Civil Action. And the list is, a big list is there, but I would just a few to name. The Accused, The Guardian, Anatomy of Murder, all these things, please, you read. And yeah, and that's from my side. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. If there are any questions from your side, I'll be happy to answer them.
As I mentioned, the house is open for questions. If anyone has a question, please, you may turn on your mic and ask the question, or you may put it in the chat box. Sir, I suppose your presentation and your explanation was so clear that everybody here is not asking any questions, so that means they are clear with the topic.
So there are two ways. There are two aspects to my speech. One is that whether it was very, very clearer for them that everything is self-explanatory, or nothing has been understood by them.
Sir, I suppose they have understood it, and as
anything written in the chat box, anything written in the chat box, I would like to hear from the scholars, law scholars especially, that if that was relevant to them, I would like to see that in the chat box in case any questions. As you say that there are no questions, of course, it's time for them. It's post-lunch session probably, or you will be breaking for lunch now.
Sir, actually your session was very clear. You have simplified English literature, just literature with law in a very diversifying way. It was actually an honor hearing you. The way you mentioned the implementation of literature, which is necessary for not only for law students, but also for judges, magistrates, everybody involved in law, and other common citizens also who are not doing law, but to understand there is anyone who has a case, to understand their point of view. Your explanation was very clear, sir. So, sir, with this, I would thank you so much for honoring us with your presence today. It was a beautiful talk, sir. Thank you so much.